Caitlin Clark is driving the WNBA insane. It's to the point that she may need to step away from the WNBA, have a billionaire come in that has the money to prove a point, and say, Caitlin, I'll pay you $50 million just to see if the WNBA can make it without you. Let's go create a completely different league and expose the hell out of the WNBA just to embarrass this Angel Reese girl that Jameel Hill just said she could go down as a Michael Jordan of WNBA.
Yeah.
And
Caitlin Clark is now being blamed for the WNBA's CBA collapse by the same players and media voices who spent 2 seasons treating her like a problem instead of an asset. And now the rumors are getting louder. If negotiations don't get resolved, Clark may take her talent to Europe. Think about that for a moment. The league that rode her visibility to a reported $2.2 billion media deal could lose its biggest draw because it couldn't get out of its own way. That's not bad luck. That's institutional failure. The panic inside the WNBA is real, and it's completely earned. If Caitlin Clark leaves because the league couldn't stabilize labor relations or protect its momentum, the blame won't fall on her. It falls on a league that benefited from her spotlight while allowing resentment, infighting, and mismanagement to fester. So the real question isn't whether Clark should explore Europe. It's this: if she walks, who owns the fallout? The players who resented her impact, or the league that let it all happen?
So the WNBPA is taking to social media, taking to the public. And I want to share with you guys the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBPA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations. By delaying and clinging to the status quo, they are jeopardizing the livelihoods of players and the trust and investment of fans, all in the name of preserving.
The WNBA is staring down a scenario it never prepared for because it never believed it could happen. Caitlin Clark, the player who delivered millions of new viewers and mainstream attention the league had never seen, may decide that playing in Europe makes more sense than navigating the dysfunction now paralyzing American women's basketball. That possibility has sent shockwaves through league offices, and it should terrify everyone whose livelihood depends on the WNBA's stability and survival, if you want it.
It is overdue. I feel like the players have lost sense of reality a little bit, because imagine putting up a rat that a lot of unions do when it comes to like schools, construction companies, people that are making a lot less than the kind of money that the WNBA players are making. They got offered a max salary of over $1 million. Their max salary last year was $250,000, and now it's over $1 million. And then on top of that, the average salary is around $500,000. And then you're putting a rat out in public display. I don't know. I feel like you've lost sense of reality a little bit. That's not the real world. The real world does not want to hear constantly about millions.
Let's be clear about what's actually happening. The CBA negotiations have collapsed. The deadline passed with no agreement. Players are being accused of holding out for unrealistic demands. The union is accusing ownership of systematically undervaluing player contributions. Free agency is frozen because no one knows what the salary cap or even the economic structure of the league will look like. And in the middle of that chaos, some players and media figures chose to make Caitlin Clark the scapegoat for a negotiation failure she had nothing to do with. That choice may end up being the single biggest strategic mistake in WNBA history. If you want this more aggressive, more ominous, or rewritten as a hook for YouTube, I can push it further.
People were saying, hey, this could be Caitlin Clark's fault. And before I just flipped and lost my mind, I had to sit and think about it. And you know what, Caitlin Clark, this is all happening and it's your fault. You're the reason. Your greatness, your star power, you are the reason for there being no 2026 WNBA season as of now. Because had you not been such a great player and a big star, these women wouldn't be demanding all of the stuff that they're demanding right now. So yeah, I guess technically it is your fault, I guess. You're too big.
Clark delivered more attention to the WNBA in one season than the league generated in the previous decade combined. Her games consistently pulled in millions of viewers. Arenas sold out wherever Indiana traveled. Her jersey became the top-selling item in league history. Networks committed $2.2 billion in media rights because the audience exploded, and that explosion traced back to her presence. Yet the response from parts of the league was hostility, jealousy, physical play that crossed clear lines, flagrant fouls that would have drawn faster whistles if anyone else were on the receiving end. Veterans publicly complaining about preferential treatment, while privately benefiting from the money she brought in. That contradiction is the core problem. They wanted the financial upside her popularity created, but resented her for being the reason it existed.
The WNBA has hostile players, bro. We all witnessed it during the 2025 and 24 season. These players pretty much hate Caitlin Clark with a passion. And I'm here to tell you right now, the hate is growing even stronger because many people in the Players Association and people in the media is blaming Caitlin Clark for potentially being the one holding out when it comes to the CBA not getting done. Now, the players had a chance.
Now the CBA talks have collapsed, and suddenly Clark is being framed as a problem, someone complicating negotiations or symbolizing what's wrong with the league. The logic doesn't hold. She hasn't made public demands. She hasn't threatened to sit out. She hasn't tried to leverage her popularity in negotiations at all. While the league and the union spiraled into dysfunction, she stayed professional, showed up, and kept her focus on basketball. But facts stop mattering when an institution needs a villain. Blaming Clark is easier than explaining why 2 years of negotiations produced nothing. It's easier than addressing leadership failures, structural disputes, or conflicts of interest inside the union itself. So instead of accountability, the narrative shifts. A generational star becomes a distraction, a convenient target, and that's the dangerous part. When a league starts turning its most valuable asset into a scapegoat, it's not just mismanaging optics. It's signaling that it doesn't understand its own survival.
She passed, said no thank you to the NBA, offering her a chance to participate in their three-point shooting contest. Now think how amazing that is. If I'd have said to you a couple years ago, yeah, the NBA, to save their All-Star weekend, they're going to ask a WNBA player to join the three-point shooting contest.
This is where the Europe angle stops sounding hypothetical and starts looking rational. European leagues have been courting elite WNBA players for years, not as a fallback, but as a parallel path. The compensation is often comparable, or better once housing, transportation, and living expenses are covered. The schedule is more stable. The environment is less hostile. And the basketball is high-level enough to keep any star sharp without being dragged into a labor mess they didn't create. For someone like Clark, Europe solves multiple problems at once. It removes her from a league where resentment toward her success has been thinly disguised as tough defense. It sidesteps the uncertainty of CBA negotiations that could stretch for months or blow up an entire season. It offers financial security without the constant scrutiny and blame shifting she's faced since day one. And it allows her brand to continue growing globally through endorsements, international exposure, and consistent on-court production. That's why this rumor has people nervous. WNBA executives know what it would signal if Clark leaves, even temporarily. It wouldn't just be one player choosing another league. It would be a public indictment of the system itself. A message that the league couldn't protect, support, or even coexist with the very star who fueled its growth. And once that door opens, it doesn't close quietly. Television ratings would fall immediately back to pre-Clark levels. Casual fans who tuned in specifically to watch her would disengage just as fast as they arrived. Sponsorship deals signed on projected growth would be reopened, scaled back, or quietly abandoned. The financial structure built on assumptions of sustained popularity would start to crack almost overnight. Clark leaving wouldn't just hurt the WNBA. It would expose how fragile the league's recent success actually was. This wasn't organic growth driven by a broad cultural shift. It was one player capturing mainstream attention in a way no one else had been able to. Remove that player and you're left with a league most casual sports fans still don't follow, and that's where the failure becomes indefensible. Organizational competence means protecting the engine that's driving your growth. It means supporting the player responsible for your biggest audiences, not allowing jealousy to metastasize into hostility. It means addressing flagrant fouls instead of normalizing them as physical play. It means setting standards instead of letting resentment dictate the tone on the court. None of this required genius. It didn't require special treatment. It required the bare minimum, not sabotaging your own success. If Clark walks, the damage won't be theoretical. It will be measurable. And everyone scrambling to assign blame afterward will already have their answer. Instead, what we got were 2 full seasons of Caitlin Clark being openly targeted while league leadership stood by. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert responded with vague talking points about physicality being part of the game. Officials allowed contact that would have drawn fines or suspensions in almost any other professional league. Media figures minimized Clark's impact while amplifying players who couldn't come close to generating the same audience. The message wasn't subtle: we'll take the attention you bring, but we won't protect or respect you. That negligence may now cost the league everything. If Clark decides that Europe offers more stability, safety, and professionalism, she isn't leaving temporarily. She's leaving permanently. Once a player of her stature steps away, momentum shifts. New opportunities open. Global brands follow. And the leverage swings entirely in her direction. Clark doesn't need the WNBA to stay relevant. Her appeal already transcends the league. The real question isn't whether she could thrive elsewhere. It's whether the WNBA can survive proving it didn't deserve her in the first place. If you want, I can. She doesn't need American women's basketball the way it needs her. That imbalance should have been obvious from day one. But jealousy and short-term thinking blinded everyone. The owners, however, seem to understand it better than the players. They're pushing teams to move forward with free agency preparations, despite the CBA chaos. That tells you everything. They're betting a deal will get done, and they refuse to let union leverage bring league operations to a standstill. The status quo period lets ownership send qualifying offers under the expired CBA while negotiations drag on. That legal framework gives the owners far more flexibility than the players realize. The players thought they had leverage because revenue and attention are up. But that leverage only exists as long as the source of that attention, Caitlin Clark, stays involved. If she leaves, their bargaining position disappears overnight. Owners can then point to plunging viewership and evaporating sponsor interest as justification for ignoring union demands. Suddenly, the entire dynamic flips. It's no longer pay us what we're worth based on recent growth. It's we'll be lucky if the league even survives without its biggest straw. Union leadership, with Nafisa Collier as vice president, has made the situation worse through clear conflicts of interest. Collier runs unrivaled, a direct competitor to the WNBA that profits when the league falters. Her credibility in negotiations is instantly compromised. Publicly criticizing league leadership while promoting her own venture has undercut the union's position. Now, Unrivaled's ratings are tanking, and Collier is suddenly trying to present herself as reasonable and collaborative. The pivot is obvious, and it isn't convincing anyone. Kelsey Mitchell's free agency situation perfectly illustrates what's broken in the WNBA right now. She's one of the league's top players and a key piece of Indiana's success alongside Caitlin Clark. Her future should be simple, but it's caught in the chaos of league-wide negotiations that have nothing to do with her individual value. That uncertainty doesn't just affect Mitchell's career planning. It hampers the Fever's ability to build on what they've already accomplished. The roster, Clark, Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall, Nalissa Smith, was a blueprint for exciting basketball. They made the playoffs and proved they could compete when everything clicked. That momentum should have carried into next season. Instead, the team's future is in limbo because league leaders got distracted by power struggles and petty grievances. Blaming Clark for CBA failures is the ultimate case of cutting off your nose to spite your face. She's not the problem. She's the reason the negotiations even matter. Without Caitlin Clark, we'd be talking about minor tweaks to existing CBA terms, not the kind of revenue sharing and salary increases that now feel essential. She generated the financial growth that made these player demands plausible in the first place. And yet, some players chose to make her the villain when negotiations collapsed. The short-sightedness is staggering. Tweets warning that Clark might indirectly cause the WNBA to end aren't even hyperbole anymore. If she leaves for Europe, viewership collapses, television deals get renegotiated downward, sponsors cut back, teams start losing money, and the whole league could spiral. None of that is Clark's fault. It's a failure of leadership. The way she was treated will go down in history. ESPN could make a 30 for 30 about it, the WNBA's biggest star ever, in an environment so toxic that she considered walking away. Veteran players responding to success with jealousy instead of gratitude, union leadership prioritizing personal business interests over collective good, league management failing to protect their most valuable asset. Lucrative, sometimes exceeding WNBA pay when you factor in housing, travel, bonuses, and tax advantages. Add endorsement opportunities that continue to grow globally, and suddenly Europe isn't just an alternative. It's a smarter professional choice. For Clark, it's not just basketball. It's autonomy, respect, and stability. No politics. No manufactured villains. No organizational negligence threatening her career trajectory. Just a system that rewards her talent and protects her investment in herself. If she chooses that path, it won't be about fleeing the WNBA. It'll be about claiming control over her career in a way the league never allowed. And the WNBA will immediately feel the repercussions: plummeting ratings, shaken sponsorships, and the exposure of a league whose recent growth was built almost entirely on one player's unprecedented impact. Europe isn't a gamble. It's a safety net Clark can walk into on her own terms. The WNBA, meanwhile, risks turning its brightest star into a cautionary tale about what happens when you fail to protect your most valuable asset. Exactly. The key here is that Clark is simultaneously the engine and the lightning rod. She's responsible for the WNBA's recent boom. Record ratings, sold-out arenas, $2.2 billion broadcast deals. But the league, certain players, and some media outlets have mishandled that success. The irony is brutal. The very person whose talent generated leverage for the union now becomes the linchpin of its potential collapse if she exits. European opportunities remove all of the WNBA structural risks. Clear contracts, higher total compensation, salary plus benefits, and a global stage that elevates her brand beyond any single league. Endorsements continue to grow. She avoids internal politics, and she plays in a system that actively wants her there rather than tolerating her. From a stakeholder perspective, the WNBA suddenly faces the ultimate leverage problem. Their growth is fragile because it depends on a single player, not systemic improvement. If Clark leaves, meanwhile, the owners gain leverage in CBA negotiations because the union's bargaining power is directly tied to Clark's presence. Remove her, and the union loses its strongest tool. It's a textbook example of organizational mismanagement, failing to protect your most valuable asset while letting interpersonal conflicts, jealousy, and bureaucracy dictate outcomes. The panic is real, justified, and entirely avoidable if only the league had managed its star properly from the start. If you want, I can craft a final, cohesive narrative tying together Clark's rise, WNBA dysfunction, CBA failure, and the Europe escape hatch into a single, high-impact expose-style piece. It would read like a story from start to near crisis. Do you want me to do that? The irony is brutal. Those who resented her influence are about to pay the highest price. Meanwhile, Clark herself walks into a position of unprecedented leverage. She can choose Europe, avoid chaos, continue building her global brand, and still play elite basketball, all while leaving the WNBA to face the consequences of its own mismanagement. The clock is ticking, and every decision or indecision could reshape the WNBA for years. If Clark walks, ratings crater. Sponsors pull back. Free agency stalls. And all the players who resented her suddenly face a harsh truth. Their financial security, their careers, their legacies are tethered to the very star they dismissed. This isn't just a negotiation anymore. It's a wake-up call about organizational myopia, jealousy, and the cost of ignoring your most valuable asset. Clark's options give her freedom. For everyone else, the consequences are real, immediate, and potentially catastrophic. Every game, every social media post, every statement from the league matters now. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and Caitlin Clark is holding the keys.